This is Standing Watch. And now, Evangelist Norbert Link.
Greetings, everyone, and welcome back to our Standing Watch program. Pope Francis is dead. What is going to happen now? In this program, I first like to go back to some of the controversy, the legacy which he leaves behind. Here's an article by AFP dated April 21. It says Pope Francis, who died on Monday, aged 88, aroused both fervor and fury within the Church. Here are the main disputes which set ultra-conservatives within the Catholic Church against the Pope. Francis in 2021 signed a decree limiting the use of the Latin Mass, reversing a more flexible edict from 2007 by his predecessor Benedict XVI. The decision provoked incomprehension and anger among part of the clergy and Catholics attached to the so-called Tridentine Mass, which is conducted entirely in Latin, with the priest facing the altar like the congregation. Some went so far as to accuse him of preventing them from practicing their faith. Pope Francis attracted the wrath of several cardinals who are supposedly his closest collaborators, but also next in command in the hierarchy of the Church. In 2017, Francis spoke out against unnamed traitors who were holding back his institutional reforms. The bad blood was aired in public in 2023 when an Italian journalist named Australian Cardinal George Pell as the author of an anonymous note attacking Francis. In the note, Pell, previously a close advisor to Francis, described the papacy as a disaster in many respects and slammed serious failures of diplomacy, particularly regarding the Ukraine war. The same year, German Cardinal Gerhard Müller, former prefect of the powerful Congregation for the Doctrine of the Faith, published a book in which he railed against Francis' governance. He denounced an influential coterie around Francis and criticized the Pope's doctrinal confusion. Francis had a particularly conflictual relationship with Georg Genswein, the private secretary to his predecessor Benedict XVI. After Benedict's death in 2022, Genswein said Francis had broken the retired Pope's heart by limiting the use of the Latin Mass. Francis hit back, saying he regretted that Benedict's death had been instrumentalized by people without ethics who act for partisan ends. In a rare move in 2023, Francis ousted U.S. Bishop Joseph Strickland, one of his fiercest enemies, who had accused the Pope of being lax on abortion and too open towards homosexuals and divorcees. In 2024, it was the turn of ultra-conservative Italian Bishop Carlo Maria Vigano, who accused Francis of heresy and tyrannical behavior. Vigano, a former ambassador of the Holy See to the United States, was excommunicated for rejecting the authority of Francis. In 2023, the Vatican published a document which paved the way for blessings of same-sex couples, provoking an outcry in the conservative Catholic world, particularly in Africa and the United States. The wave of criticism forced the Vatican to make a quote-unquote clarification, to defend itself from any doctrinal error while acknowledging it may be quote-unquote imprudent to apply it in certain countries. In their opposition to blessings for same-sex couples, the African bishops are criticized and criticizing what they call European moral decadence or European Catholicism, and they include the Pope in that. The Argentine also irritated far-right Catholics with his calls for migrants to be given welcome in the old continent, with some warning Europe could lose its Christian identity. So far, this article. I'd like to make a few additional comments here. Francis also spoke against Trump's immigration policy and especially the American-Mexican border, and he seemingly advocated open borders. He even said that Trump was not even a Christian for his position. But at the same time, he closed access for most immigrants to the Vatican State. He also locked down Vatican City during the coronavirus crisis. His greatest test came in 2018, so the Associated Press, when he botched a notorious case of clergy sexual abuse in Chile, and the scandals that festered under his predecessors erupted anew. So he died on Easter Monday, apparently of a stroke. It will be interesting to see whether the liberals, they're referred to as the reform-oriented group, or the conservatives, the traditionalists, win in electing the new pope by about, it says, 130 or so cardinals. Now, the shenanigans behind the scenes were portrayed quite remarkably in the recent award-winning movie Conclave. Now, of course, this movie has been criticized, attacked, rejected by some critics. However, the movie might even be harmless in comparison to what really might be going on behind closed doors. Ultimately, the candidate who's going to be the next pope will emerge, who is supposed to enhance the development of biblical prophecy. When talking about Francis' past, we also need to address his anti-Israel legacy. Israel 365 News wrote on April 21, "The Pope frequently omitted Judaism when discussing other religions. This was clearly expressed in 2021 when Francis became the first Pope to visit Iraq. While there, he hosted an interreligious prayer service. The prayer event was named Prayer for the Sons and Daughters of Abraham. No Jews were invited to the event. Pope Francis called for an investigation into claims that Israel is carrying out a genocide in Gaza. The Vatican supports a two-state solution between Israel and the Palestinians that would establish, and here this is what the article says, an unprecedented militarized Palestinian state inside Israel's borders that has been ethnically cleansed of Jews, with its capital in an exclusively Muslim Jerusalem. In 2015, just a few days after the Vatican officially recognized the Palestinian state, Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas was granted an audience in the Apostolic Palace. After the meeting, Francis gave Abbas a special medallion representing the angel of peace, destroying the bad spirit of war. The Pope explained to Abbas that the gift was appropriate since you, Abbas, are an angel of peace. Now it's quite interesting to see whether Pope Francis' distorted ideas will be adopted or rejected by the new Pope. And that brings me to another article by The Guardian dated April 22 talking about the power struggle in the Vatican. It says, "The death of Pope Francis will throw into sharp relief the power struggle that has been a hallmark of his papacy. In the coming days, a ferocious battle for the future of the Church will be played out with the highest of stakes within the sanctity of the Sistine Chapel. There are more than 250 cardinals in total, but those over the age of 80 are ineligible to take part in the conclave. That leaves 135 eligible cardinals who will begin making their way to Rome in the coming days. And of course, we know that it takes about 15 to 20 days before it can start after, the Pope died. And then they all are waiting for the white smoke to signal the election of a new Pope. Normally, every Catholic can become Pope, but since 1138, I think it was, 1378 actually, only cardinals have been elected to become Pope. We need a two-thirds majority of the cardinals to find a new Pope. The article goes on to say, in the 12 years after Francis became Pope, he appointed about 110 of those eligible, stacking the conclave in favor of a successor likely to embrace his outlook and continue his work. The appointments made it difficult for an anti-France Pope to emerge, but not impossible. But it doesn't mean this group is unanimous and cohesive, or that they have the same ideas. For example, Gerhard Ludwig Müller, the German cardinal Francis appointed, clashed with the late Pope on numerous issues, including blasting the decree to allow the blessing of gay couples as heresy. Foremost among his critics was the US Cardinal Raymond Burke, who has long pushed back against the Pope's stance of gay rights and social justice issues, who, like Müller, aligns with the views of Donald Trump, who still reported to attend the funeral. Burke is still popular among conservative Catholic Americans. And that leads me to another interesting phenomenon and article which was published by Daily Mail on April 21. It talks about the prophecy of the popes, but I'm not talking about biblical prophecy here. Nevertheless, let's listen to what this article has to say. The 12th century prophecy of the popes, reportedly uncovered in the Vatican's secret archives, claims to predict the identity of Francis' successor and even foretells the return of Christ. The document starts with Celestine II in 1143 and ends with Peter the Roman in 2027. Fanning the flames is the eerie fact that there are currently 9 front-runners to succeed Pope Francis, and 3 of them are named Peter. Now, of course, others who are being elected Pope can always adopt the name. It says a renewed interest has also reunited fears about one of the prophecy's more chilling predictions, that Judgment Day is near. According to the final entry surrounding Peter the Roman, the last Pope will preside over the Church during a time of great turmoil, culminating in the destruction of Rome and the end of the papacy. In the final persecution of the Holy Roman Church there will reign Peter the Roman, who will feed his flock amid many tribulations. That would include the Great Tribulation, after which the seven-hilled city, Rome, will be destroyed, and the dreadful judge will judge the people. The end. The last passage of the book reads. Although some scholars have claimed the text is a 16th century forgery, Malachi, however you want to pronounce his name, not the Malachi of the Bible, of course, he allegedly wrote prophecy of the popes in 1139, after receiving a vision during a visit to Rome. Now, if the text is not a forgery, but legit, it would have been written under demonic influence, which can be seen, among other things, by the wording dreadful judge in reference to Christ. Now, if it was a forgery, probably it was also written under demonic influence. We know, of course, that Christ could not possibly come back in 2027, the reason being the Great Tribulation, which lasts about 3.5 years prior to Christ's return, hasn't even started yet. We also know that demons, even though they may know the future, are lying spirits. So you never know when they tell the truth and when they lie. Now, one thing is interesting. It is correct, based on biblical prophecy, that Rome will be destroyed at the end of the Great Tribulation, the day of the Lord, when Christ returns. And the question is the successor to Francis now going to be the last Pope? Now, we know that popes can rule longer time, they can rule very short times. One pope only lasted for a month until he died, perhaps not naturally died. So we have to wait and see. We have to wait and see also whether the next pope is going to be another liberal following Francis, or whether he is a conservative, trying to bring about something different. These are exciting times. The big question is, when is that last one appear? And who is he going to be? We'll keep you informed. Thank you very much for listening. This is Norbert Link for the Standing Watch program.
Standing Watch is a presentation by the Church of the Eternal God, P.O. Box 270519, San Diego, California 92198. More information is also available at our website, eternalgod.org.